Hello out there. I'm the oldest nerd. Time once again for talking movies with Professor O. Good to see you again. We both had other things we had to do last week, so it's good to see you again as we talk about the first 21st century movie that we're ever going to review, and that is this Ryan Gosling Project Hail Mary film, which is now streaming, but we both saw theatrically.
We did, and I will say it is fun to. This is one of the first cases where that I can think. I guess it happens a lot, but still, where you watch it in the spring, and all of a sudden it's free. Well, on Amazon Prime, it's free,
Oh
but
yeah.
yeah, but and there it is streaming, and no DVD in between. I just watched it streaming, and oh, what a fun film.
Would you say that instant classic is a good way to describe this film? Because I've seen that elsewhere, and I'd like your opinion on that.
Yes, absolutely. Even how long does it take to get to that classic status? And we covered The Martian, and it feels like that is getting that classic status, or maybe it's already there. This
Yeah.
film feels like it just works. If the instant classic is exactly right, you realize you saw something. If you're a science fiction fan, you saw something that you don't see. I mean, it takes every 5 years for something like this to happen, and just such a fun instant classic film.
Yeah, and I won't say that it didn't have any flaws to it, but it certainly had a lot of heart to it. And we'll get into some of the details of why I really liked this. But apparently, a lot of people did. It cost $200 million to make, they estimate, and worldwide gross is $684,232,722 and 40 cents. I added the 40 cents. I figured that's got to be there somewhere.
Yeah, it's got to be. Yes. No, yeah, unbelievable. Just everything about it just worked, and yeah, including making a lot of money. I was watching. Andy Weir. I was watching Andy Weir on with talking to Neil deGrasse Tyson, and Neil deGrasse Tyson said, "Well, you got that expensive Panama hat because of all the money it made," and he did have a rakish Panama hat that he was wearing during the interview. But and there's so much. I mean, and for this to go on, and you knew Neil deGrasse Tyson wanted him as a guest instantly because there's so much to talk about in terms of science. It hits on all cylinders.
Yes, and I understand that there's a couple of things interesting about this. One is that the film was in pre-production before the book was published, and of course that's because Andy Weir was the producer on it. This is his first film that he's ever produced, and also he stayed on as science advisor, and they say that his scientific knowledge was spot on. So
Wow.
he was good at what he did, and like any kind of good science fiction, you have to start out with what's real, and then only project into the future what isn't, and that makes it believable. That was the whole thing behind Star Trek. You want to go as close to the science as you can, and then when there's something that's in the way of what you want to do, you just invent something like the
Right.
Heisenberg compensator.
I
You remember
like
that?
that.
In Next Generation, they had something called the Heisenberg compensator in order to make the transporters work.
Right.
Because Heisenberg's uncertainty principle says that you cannot predict the position and speed of any object at the same time. And that's how the transporter works. And so they have a Heisenberg compensator on it so that you can actually beam somebody down.
I did. I've heard that term. I remember hearing it, especially. I think when Simon Pegg was being Scotty on, and he had to do some of those pinpoint beamings
Yeah,
in the first Star Trek movie with Simon Pegg and Chris Pine.
right.
Uh, I it seems like the term comes up there, and but that's a great background to that term. I didn't know. So yeah, that's the a Heisenberg compensator. Yeah, you extrapolate once you go with what's known and extrapolate from that, and then you just science the bleep out of everything. That's
Yeah. Yeah, there. Of course, The Martian was certainly informed a lot of this picture, I think, and they had the same kind of feeling to it. We kind of talked about that when we just gave our first impressions of it a few episodes back, but. That's essentially what is here. Interesting thing about Gene Roddenberry didn't like the whole idea of explaining the technology. He said in a detective show, when they pull the gun and shoot the gun, they don't explain to you how the gun works. They just shoot somebody and you believe that it works because it did.
Right.
And so the whole idea of explaining Heisenberg compensators and warp field generators and aligning the dilithium and all this kind of stuff was stuff that he wasn't terribly interested in. And you notice through the first episodes of the first season of TNG, there wasn't a lot of that. The
Interesting.
tech speak came after he was not so involved, and later after he died, of course.
Gotta credit him for that in some respects. You find some sort of balance there because as a science fiction fan, you're wondering how this works. But on the other hand, I can just see Gene Roddenberry turning over and over the more Geordi talks
Yeah.
because you get into the techno battle and yet somehow even some of those episodes would find a balance. I loved it. I know but I loved that some of the techno babble when I can't remember the name of the episode, but when Jordy was able to, uh, he worked with a hologram of an engineer that he really admired,
That designed
and
the
then
ship. Yeah.
right, and then she shows up. It was very different than his hologram, and
That goes to show you never trust AI.
yeah, God, I love it.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I liked about this film was Ryan Gosling is not your average hero. In fact, one of the quotes is, "I'm the knot in astronaut."
Right. Oh, that's a good
You know,
quote.
he said, I get scared when I'm on an elevator, in which Elisa, one of the scientists, says, "Well, there are no elevators on the ship."
Right.
But but the idea that he is not your usual square-chinned hero kind of idea, which we put in a lot of science fiction films and TV shows for that matter, is that he's someone that didn't want to be there. He was someone who found himself there and had to get his memory back to figure out how he ended up at a place he never wanted to be.
Right.
And the fact that he becomes heroic after the end has to do really more with relationships than it has to do with his loyalty to the cause or the fleet or whatever. But at the same time, it gives him very much an everyman characterization that appeals to me.
Right. And one podcast mentioned the film cast mentioned that how how much alone time you spend with him, and as a viewer before he meets Rocky,
Yeah.
and so as a viewer you've got to so often that square jawed character we're spending time alone with is oh gosh, Moses from I just skipped his,
Okay.
yeah,
That'll do.
not Moses, but the actor that played Moses. It just I had
Oh
him on the
yeah,
tip.
yeah. I know you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Well, we'll get right with this in just a second. But Planet of the Apes,
Yeah.
also the Omega Man, and Charlton Heston. And think
Charlton
of how
Heston.
much
Yeah.
in the both those films, Planet of the Apes and the Omega Man, you spend a lot of alone time with Charlton Heston. He is the square jaw character you're talking
Yes,
about.
absolutely.
And that time alone is okay, but I wouldn't say that those are the highlights of the films. The films get better when he meets people. Whereas Ryan Gosling, you're right, he's 100%. He is that everyman, and you are comfortable with spending I'm more comfortable with spending time alone with Ryan Gosling than I am with Charlton Heston.
In
Uh,
fact, some of the better bits of the film, I believe, have to do with Rocky being a little uncertain of just how good a pilot that Grace is.
oh, it's great. That is. Oh, and by the way, I'm sure you know this. Andy Weir named him Grace because Hail Mary, the Grace connection to Hail Mary.
Yeah, the
That
ship was full of grace. Yeah,
the ship was full of
yeah.
grace.
That's
So
that's That's a dad joke. That's all I can say.
It is, it is. But he named the character apparently after that. So,
Okay.
one of those connections he made in a coffee shop while writing the things.
They had some very good dialogue
Oh,
between him and Rocky because and all of it is kind of a Beverly Hillbillies kind of humor. It's because one side doesn't really understand what the other one's talking about and tries to fit in. Where Rocky says words of encouragement. Grace says you can't just say words of encouragement.
oh,
Rocky
I
says
am
words
so
of great
glad you
encouragement.
mentioned that because it feels like that's if the words of encouragement, it feels like they're making a comment when people just throw out that line, hopes and prayers. They might as well be saying words of encouragement. I mean, you can't just say
Yeah.
words of, it's that
You can't
empty.
you can't say that, so he said words of great encouragement.
Yeah, and Rocky meant it more than a lot of when people
Yes.
say hopes and prayers. I trust I'll take Rocky's version of that to tell you the truth.
One of my favorite lines in there because of its effect. It kind of hits you in the gut when he said it. He said, are you married? And he says, yes.
Oh,
Was married 163 years. He said, still in the honeymoon phase, and he says, what? And it's a joke, and he says. It means that you've been there a long time. And he said, not long enough.
oh, that does it. Yeah, not long enough. Yeah, yeah. I also like Rocky's empathy when he was talking about the relationship that whatever happened to Mark's Ryan Gosling's girlfriend, when the and he mentioned, well, she went to Mark, and Rocky just instantly said, Rocky hates Mark. I like that. I thought that was so cool. He might not have said he might have Rocky not like Mark. I can't remember what he said, but he instantly took Ryan Gosling's side on that.
Yes.
You cannot have a better friend. That's apparently the man, and Andy Weir went into tremendous lengths in designing everything. Of course, he scienced the bleep out of everything, including
Yeah.
Rocky and Rocky's how Rocky could live. How and it actually be potentially functionally true. And one thing about Rocky is they are apparently conscious almost all the time, and
Mhm.
because of that, they they have it's like if you take away something that basically they don't have object permanence.
Right. It was
They
because they have no concept of visualization,
right. That
which
makes
is
sense.
kind of odd in some of the scenes where, of course, they have transparent panels between Rocky and Grace. Rocky can't know that that's any different from any other material that he's working with because he can only sense Grace through sound and
And
other
so he doesn't
things.
doesn't sense that as different with the
Yeah.
because
Well,
of
when
the way.
they're describing the planet, he calls it round, medium textured,
Right,
because
because
despite the fact that the planet is very green.
exactly, exactly, no sense of color to like just
No sense of
complete.
color, no sense of sight. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love the way that we get a Rocky's point of view from time to time. And they just sneak it in. I mean, they just all of a sudden you're watching
Yeah.
this interaction fairly early on, and all of it then we see Rocky's point of view, and you're going, wait, what was that? And you realize it's Rocky's point of view, but it's really cool the way they sneak that in.
Yeah. Now it's interesting. Rocky's lines are not read by the lead puppeteer was the voice of Rocky. They
Ah,
originally had him just to do the scratch track for that, and then they
right.
found that he did it so well they didn't. They decided not to try to give it to anybody else. However, while they were performing, uh, um, the earpiece would feed the lines to him, so he'd be able to react to them. And the person that was reading the lines most of the time was his daughter.
I'll be darned.
Yeah,
That's wow. So the puppeteer could react. That's
yeah. It was
kind of
Ryan
reminds
Gosling's
me.
daughter. Yeah,
Yeah, very similar, and similar in a way with Yoda scenes too, with some of the way Yoda is hearing those lines.
I don't know because the Muppets worked a different way. The puppeteers
Gotcha.
had head mics on, but
Right.
in this case, they had like five people that were operating Rocky, and
Right.
they just they wiped him out in post production.
Right.
They wanted to make it. Rocky was made out of fiberglass. It did have one area where they had fingers
Ah,
and did the thumbs down interestingly because they couldn't make it do the thumbs up with the
that
lines
was a
that they had,
practical
and
onset call. Yeah.
it was, and so that became kind of a joke in there, and the idea was that they didn't want to do CG unless they just had to. They did it for the outer space scenes, but for everything so that Ryan could um, see who he was talking to.
Right.
They
And not get to look at a
they made
tennis
it
ball.
a puppet. Also, they shot this movie in sequence. Now, you can explain to me why it makes any sense to shoot a movie out of sequence, but I think they shot the outer space scenes first, and then
First
everything else was done in the order that we saw it.
in England, and that's yeah. Apparently, they got a good tax break. The tax assist actually money goes into production because they
Yeah,
shot in England, and the cinematographer said who did a marvelous job. There were two directors, which is interesting. The cinematographer said there was never a problem with working with two directors. It's very unusual, of course, and this was his first time
yeah,
to work with a multi-headed, beast on two directors. And but he said it went smoothly. But the cinematographer said just the effect on Ryan Gosling, where they filmed everything where he's by himself first, and then when he could interact with people, it just you could just see the relief. He just enjoyed it so much. And I thought, what a brilliant way to do that, so that he gets the extra enjoyment of working with people because the way they shot
yeah.
it.
Well, it's also interesting, once again, coming back to this idea of his daughter in the earpiece. He's able to um, react on a more personal level with Rocky because that's his daughter. That's somebody he knows
That's it.
very well and
Yeah.
responds to very well. And so it's a whole different feeling than just a a TA telling here's the line.
Here's the line. Well, that guy, it was Luke that had the earpiece on
PA.
in, I think it was Return of the Jedi, and yeah, on Dagobah, and or that would have been on Empire. We covered that, and yeah, so that was he was being fed lines in an earpiece, but that having it, God, being read by somebody so meaningful. Oh, that's fantastic, and I love the fact that the puppet is basically, it takes five people to run it, but it's basically what we see. It's on set. I'm sure
Yes.
there's some digital augmentation, and you're right. They had to get rid of
The
the
only digital was wiping out the
was just
puppeteers,
wiping out the
which was
wires.
why he couldn't do a thumbs up. They just
Yeah,
couldn't
that
make it
is
work where it would
brilliant.
uh, rotate his wrist.
And how can you're thinking, how can a puppet without a face convey so much meaning? You're just inferring what might be eyes. You have no idea. They're never really confirmed. Are these eyes? Are they not? They're things that kind of look translucent on rocky surface, but it just works. Yeah, that is incredible. And apparently, I did hear Andy Weir said that this would be, he really extrapolated the planet and the planet's atmosphere, and the planet's twice the size of Earth, at least.
Yeah,
And it was, and apparently it was. They're not sure if it's real anymore, but back when he was writing, that there would be a little fluctuation in this star, a periodic, which suggested that a,
yeah,
a planet was orbiting the star. And then so he starts to fluctuate, and I think it's a trinary system, three stars. And so he was starting to speculate, how this would work. And basically, he said there's a lot of good argon and xenon and all sorts of chemical compounds involved. The one thing that was interesting too, though, whoa, you may have to help me out here, is how water exists on a planet, on a planet like this. And what was so funny too is Ryan Gosling's character says, "You don't need water for life," and of course, no, Rocky's planet completely needs they need water. And how do they have water? It's because, whoa, geez, it's the boiling point of water because of atmospheric pressure is completely different on Rocky's planet, the boiling planet. So
Yeah,
basically, the
it's more
way
more of a ammonia kind of thing, which in the book was suggested in Rocky's ship that was more of an ammonia atmosphere,
that makes sense. Yeah,
and so the planet would obviously be that as well. That's
right.
that's kind of interesting of how they don't go through all of the details in the book. For instance, when Grace falls out of the couch that he's on when he first wakes up on the ship,
Right.
uh, the book indicates that a catheter came loose.
Ouch.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those things have to be deflated before you remove them, and they decided that that was just a little too graphic for even this film.
That was a, that was two quick things on that. That's no, I didn't get that's brilliant. Whoa. Oh,
They may have
no
even
more.
filmed it and then decided, no, we can't do this.
Yeah, yeah, one of those things best left unsaid. Yeah, that's
Yes.
but but compared, yeah, one thing from the book too was apparently that, and this one, Andy Weir really argued for this scene. It's the one scene he wanted because he understands the adaptation process, that you're going to lose a lot that's in the book that you're in love with, and it's just not going to make the movie, even though the movie's 2 hours and 37 minutes long, but
Yeah.
apparently, the measures Earth was taking to compensate for global cooling, which which is sounds so counterintuitive, but to compensate for getting colder, was to blow up, nuke the Antarctic ice shelf,
Yes.
so that to just to speed up, to release greenhouse gases, release methane, and increase global warming because it's getting so cold. And he really wanted that scene, but they didn't need it. And I can see why that was cut. That just would be kind of mind boggling. You'd be thinking about that 15 minutes later in the movie when you need to be focusing on Rocky. And but that got cut. And the one other thing that he said too was interesting about Rocky. He said when you think about it, it's like life with all these atmospheres and the argon and the ammonia. It's like life at the bottom of the ocean. And he got to thinking, is there life? Yes, there's life. They bottom of the ocean, you don't see any sunlight. There's still life. And so that's kind of where he equated how Rocky's civilization it's like at the bottom of the ocean. And that
Makes a lot
kind
of
of made me
sense.
think of the first time we see Rocky is the only time they kind of made it scary when Rocky appears in that portal. When Ryan Gosling, their ships are meeting, and
Yeah.
Rocky shows up, and it does look kind of like an undersea creature, like that you're seeing for the first time.
Yeah. One of the things that also the book, I'm told, uh, expands upon is that Rocky had a whole lot more to do with how they were able to come up with the solutions. He was better at working the problem than Grace was. Obviously, Grace was a mathematician and had a lot of expertise, but probably could not have done it by himself. The reason that he was put on there was, of course, because the one of the astronauts couldn't make it, and the only people that could survive the freezing, the suspended animation or whatever they were doing with them, had a certain genetic quality which was very rare, and Grace had that, and so that's what made him so indispensable.
That would not have been a bad addition. That
They could have explained
just
that,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, that would have that could have been that would that's neat. I like that. That would make a little bit more sense, that the yeah, and just how dicey and risky it is to cryogenically freeze anybody. That would also
Yeah.
maybe have why, because it's just so. One thing I didn't research this area, but when the it's this when they give when the one engineer gives the wrong quantity of this material, the star astrophage, I think,
Yeah.
it has the wrong quantity. It's like he was using 1,000 times or more than, and it ends up in a giant explosion of the it was that that happens pretty fast. And and the explosion, did that also kill that one scientist that was, I kind of missed that, where because two of the scientists
I
were
think it
still
did.
alive.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah, I
think
think,
that's what
and
happened. Yeah.
a lot of the team dies, and
Yeah.
it just huge setback because just of measuring something wrong. Yeah, and you know, you brought up another thing too. I like that Rocky. He makes two big contributions. One is, at least in the movie, and I kind of like the idea the book had more for him to do. In the movie, he talks. They're talking about. I think they're talking about getting the sample. How do you get a sample from the Tau Ceti planet, of whatever's in the planet that's stopping the astrophage? And so and so Grace was talking about how to line up the ships on an orbital path, and Rocky just has this incredibly simple idea. No, just going this way. And it's interesting to see
Yeah.
Mark Grace kind of thinks he's a little bit the smartest guy in the world, even though there's not an astronaut. You can tell he knows he's smart, and he kind of like snaps his finger and says, "Ah, Rocky, Mark Grace not get this. You know, you got this." And then I
Yeah.
love the other one when Rocky figures out that what's stopping the astrophage is this other form of life on the planet, and that is what is the predator. And Rocky has to point that out. You know, no, life is it. Life is the predator. And it takes a minute for Mark Grace to catch that.
Yeah, yeah, it's very interesting. In the book, they say they took weeks to come up to those same things, and so they telescoped that somewhat for the film.
Did they talk
So
about? Yeah, no,
uh,
communication process in the book a little bit because that
I
how
believe they
did they?
did. Yeah,
Yeah,
that was the one thing that kind of stopped me. Although they say that it's very plausible that he could have had a computer with a program on it to translate, even though I didn't think they were going to actually encounter anybody that spoke any language
yeah,
or anything. So I
anything.
find it interesting that the computer would be, did that just come with Windows?
That was yeah, Neil deGrasse Tyson asked the same question you did, and Andy Weir was a little sketchy on the answer. The it basically he said it was they when they started off with this is one. I call it one. How do you say one? How do you say two? You know, kind of basing language on numbers. And Neil deGrasse basically it comes down to what you said. I think Andy Weir said, "Well, it comes with Windows." It's kind of at the end of the day.
Okay. I want to mention something I didn't realize at first. Every once in a while, you'll see one of these films that has a familiar face. And in this
Ah,
case, Milana Vayntrub, who plays Alessia Lukahima, who is one of the scientists, is the same person who was the AT&T salesperson in the commercials.
no.
Yes. She originally was on YouTube. She was discovered by somebody at MTV who signed her to a contract. She is now a actress, producer, various things, and best known for the commercials, but has been she's played character actor stuff in a number of films, including this
Hey,
one.
yeah, it's really she is. You know, the character actors are very good, but she by far has it's like basically Ryan Gosling and you know she plays the other central part, the other major part, and I did not know that's where she came from. She's terrific at
Yeah, she's
yeah.
her ancestry is her family came from Uzbekistan, and
Ah,
so that gives her kind of a foreign look to her.
yeah, yeah, it works perfectly. And that, yeah, do you think, what did you think about the plausibility? I mean, there's so much to unpack in this film. The, the plausibility, there's the science, we've talked about the planet, but the plausibility that Earth would come together in this way. And I like the way, you know, how plausible do you think that we would actually react like this?
I don't think that Earth actually came together as much as the scientific community did.
Ah,
There's a scene where, what was the character's name? Um, oh, Narendra, who said, um, we're from the government, and the person at the hardware store said, "What government?" And he said, "Every government."
I love that guy. I love that. He had a strong part too. You're right. All the
Aaron Neal,
character actors,
the actor
but
there,
he
yeah.
he was the one relatable character for Ryan Gosling as he's going through all the training and everything, and that trip to wherever they went, the hardware store was a lot of fun. That
Yeah,
it
it
just kind of
was.
needed that. Yeah,
Do I have an expense account? No, you don't. We do.
we do. And how much? Yeah, that and man, they actually and it makes you wonder, how much, are we looking at some of the basic tools of science in action, duct tape, measuring tape, all the things they, foil that look like some of the basic components.
But we knew since Apollo 13 that duct tape is something that used to go on all the space flights, probably still does. And Apollo 13, they had run out of oxygen scrubbers. And
Right,
and most of the time, whenever you suffocate, it's not because you have a lack of oxygen; it's because you have too much carbon dioxide. And
right,
so there is, and my late mother-in-law had one of these oxygen generators, and what it was it would take the carbon dioxide out of the air and push pure oxygen through it. And it was about the size of a vacuum cleaner.
right,
And so on the spacecraft they have the same kind of thing. And in Apollo 13, they had run out of cartridges for the scrubber in the command module, and they had some for the lunar module, but they were a different shape. For some
right.
reason, they decided to do a different type of thing
Different type
in
of
the same ship. So what we had was they had to take foil, duct tape,
duct tape.
parts of a pressure suit, and form it all together into an adapter so that this cartridge would fit in the one in the command module. And that's the first time I heard that they had duct tape on board.
On
And
board
that's just a regular thing that always goes with them. And I'm thinking, from time to time, I will, pull out, I'll go buy a roll of duct tape. Well, what do we need that for? And I said, well, if you can repair a spaceship with it, it's probably good around the house.
Exactly, and that is the one of the most iconic scenes in another instant classic, Apollo 13.
Yeah.
That and that and having they had it was awesome. The scientists had to figure out what does he have on board to make what do they have on board to make this work,
Yeah.
and then how can we make this work here within like 3 hours. They had no time to play with,
Right.
and how can we make this work, and then how can we give instructions to make this work. I just on That's a semester project for most students.
Yes.
Probably most engineering students, but yeah, that was an afternoon on Apollo 13. And yeah, and so duct tape, that was so much fun. I love that scene, makes it relatable, sends you back to, you're right, because it sends you back to Apollo 13. You're thinking, where does that come from? And so much of that comes from Apollo 13 and watching science in it. So much of a tribute to science. It just, from the
Yes.
beginning,
And a
hardcore
lot of
science.
it has to do. Many people think of science as, the laboratory with Bunsen burners and beakers with colored water in them, but really, what it comes from is just things that you find around the house.
Right. That
Tape, paper clips, cardboard, and amazing how many things have been fashioned with just very basic things that you can find every day.
In the back of my mind, I'm thinking anytime Ryan Gosling's character had a problem anywhere, that was what he would do. He would start looking for things instantly. There's a scene in the movie, I can't remember exactly what it is, but he does exactly that. It's just stuff that's in front of him, and how can he
Yes.
manipulate it to solve the problem at hand.
Now, before we go too far, we've been spending much of our time aboard the ship where Ryan Gosling is basically by himself, acting against a fiberglass puppet.
Right.
But there are actually some other characters in there, including Eva Stratt, who is German. The book said that she was Japanese, but when they found Sandra Hüller to play this part, they made her German because she was German. And
That
in
makes
fact, in the version of this film that's shown in Germany, she gets equal billing with actually higher billing than Ryan Gosling
higher
does.
billing. That
But she
she
deserves it.
was.
She did a great job in this because she played the detached administrator. She knew that there were things that she had to do that might not be something that would look good in the paper, but had to be done. And she was laser beam focused on all of that.
Yeah, 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 that's she would. It would, yeah, the amount that she asks at times, it's incredible. Laser beam focused, and I'm not sure if that would be my choice as mom.
No,
This must be done, but still, she was fan, and so that's fascinating that she was perfect for the part. I mean, just
yeah,
outstanding.
really.
And
Yeah,
then,
interesting. They
yeah,
cast Ryan Gosling before they even bought the rights to the book, which they bought the rights to the book for like $3 million,
right.
and so that was, and they wanted Ryan Gosling for it to begin with. We'll figure out the rest of the cast later.
Wow. Wow. That 3 million got a nice Panama hat for Andy Weir. That's
It did.
that's a good that's
Now
a good
you
pick
keep
for a
coming back
writer.
to hats, and there is a scene in there where Ryan Gosling is saying, "I see you got the hat," and that comes from a Saturday Night Live sketch that he did. Where you remember the sketch in Saturday Night Live, if you watch it, where they have the group of how can I say this without being elitist? Anyway, this group of people who've seen UFOs
Right.
and have been abducted by UFOs. And Ryan's character, all he cared about was
Yeah.
the fact that he got this hat as a result
It was UFO
of,
experience.
yeah.
That's a no, I have not seen that. That is brilliant. That's where the hat comes from. Yeah, that hat. Oh God. It's amazing. Yeah, what you've got to do to, because we're basic. How much time elapses after he wakes up and before he meets Rocky? Is that like 8 months?
It could be. I don't know.
That's a long time by
It is a long
yourself.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, and basically going with severe amnesia, just the most disorienting. Like, you cannot. There's no way you're going to be in any more disorienting circumstances than that, and to slowly put yourself back together. And so, yeah, the hat and some of the fun things he does, goofy fun things he does, are in that sense. In other movies you might go, this is stupid. This is just silly.
Well,
In
if
this
you go
movie,
back,
it
if you
just
go back
works.
to Tom Hanks in Castaway,
Right.
where he develops a relationship with a soccer ball. It is a
Yeah.
matter of dealing with that day after day non-contact with human beings.
Right. Right. That completely makes, yeah. And what do you do? How do you cope? And it's just beautiful. It works. The hat's part of that,
Yeah.
and all the other things he does. It works incredibly well. Any other thing? Because you're right. It's so easy to focus on the ship, even in terms of special effects. We'll get back to that. There's a couple of things to talk about, but more. So they're filming in England with the cast, and I think the interactions are fantastic. It's funny. They're short, the small interactions, but even the two astronauts that are trying to convince him to go on the mission are powerful parts. The guy that says our expense account is unlimited, terrific actor. Any other things about that kind of caught your attention? Their time with people and those character actors.
Well, the one thing that also was kind of interesting was the karaoke bit,
Oh
and
yes. Whoa.
that was not in the script. It was something that Ava Stratt was a good singer, and Ryan Gosling wanted to get her to sing and for them to film it, and it wasn't really intended to go in the movie, but it turned out so well that they went ahead and did.
That is and yes, that and the bowling scene in the IKEA. It kind of felt like, it's like they're just completely kind of come from out of nowhere, and it's just an emotional type of experience. The song's lyrics are really poignant, strange.
Yeah.
They're not comforting, but her singing is comforting. And that is an unusual. I love that scene. That's on the. I think that's on the aircraft carrier. Is that right? Before
Yeah.
where they're doing their training, building. That absolutely works. One thing that's kind of interesting. I don't know what made me think of this, but Rocky's Planet, they're brilliant. But one thing that his people they kind of are impressed with our science and our thinking machine, even if it has even if hey, Windows comes with language stuff. They're impressed with our computers. That
Yeah.
Rocky's Planet is, and but they never accounted for the theory of relativity.
Right.
So yeah, you'd heard that. So
Yes. Yes.
they put in more fuel than they need. The whole relativity, the whole time, the whole uh, bends in time because of the theory of relativity that occur surprised them, and so they have twice the amount of fuel that they need, and that's how they could give Ryan Gosling fuel to get back home,
Yeah.
which was yeah, that's but yeah, it's kind of amazing to think of a spacefaring species that had not come up and not thought of that. I was saying there was one other thing that they hadn't accounted for either. Oh, well, just the idea of what radiation could do to their species.
Oh
uh
yeah.
wow,
Obviously they
yeah,
weren't accounting for that, and that was
no,
devastating for them.
yeah, wow, yeah, it really, yeah,
Now,
but
now another thing, Ryan Gosling ad-libbed a lot of stuff, and one of the things was when they were trying out voices, and there were various people that were used
right.
for voices, possible voices for Rocky that both Grace and Rocky are auditioning, and if they agree that that's not going to be it, they go on to the next one, and one of the voices is Meryl Streep.
Right.
Now, of course, all those were dubbed in. One of them was the person that read the audio book for the book, and
Oh,
so a number of people that were basically voice actors that they did that with. Anyway, the thing is, he ad libs the line, Meryl Streep, man, she can do anything. Now, they dubbed all that stuff in later. And so after he said that, they wanted to leave it in, and they had to get Meryl Streep to agree to read that bit and put her in the film.
that I noticed she was in the cast.
Yes.
Voice of Meryl Streep. That's interesting. That that the I was oh, Carl, I believe, was played by Lionel Boyce, and I was just yeah,
Right.
uh, looking yeah, really good, yeah. Apparently he was on. Oh, I'm having trouble figuring out what he was on, but yeah, obviously Motor City TV show called The Bear, which I know is a well received show, but I have not seen The Bear. But that's
Okay.
interesting. They had to get a hold of Meryl Streep, contact her, and make sure everything was copacetic
Yeah.
with using
For an ad libbed line, that
for
cost them some
one
money.
ad.
That cost them some money for one ad lib line.
That's
But they
that's
made
yeah.
it. They made it back. This is the second highest grossing film that Ryan Gosling has been in. The biggest one, of course, was Barbie.
Oh, that makes sense. That
Yeah.
completely makes sense. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, that yeah, I yes, totally makes sense. I think yeah, at one point when I think it's so impactful that Neil deGrasse Tyson was couldn't remember his name. Like I keep calling him Ryan Gosling, and Neil deGrasse Tyson said, "Oh, let's just call him Ken" when they're talking in this show. So
Yeah.
yes, Barbie is impactful. But
That's true.
one thing
That's true.
I had seen in the kind of because we hit special thing, I looked up. There was an article um, on the an article on from it's an organization called SeaGraph, and they were going to. It was 25-page article talking about the computer animation to other animators, and I thought I'm not gonna. I need Windows to translate that on that SeaGraph article, because there's no way I'm going to understand the language of animators. But there was a really good article on the from the cinematographer in the magazine, The American Cinematographer, and couple of, they talked about how they one thing they did with the one bit of software they used was called, I think it's called Unreal Engine. And Unreal Engine allows them to digitally um, go through the sets, really look at the sets in a very detailed way, so they can see where, because the set for the cockpit of the spaceship was very complicated,
Yeah.
small, and they had to shoot it. The lighting changed when it would be rotating. They've got to light it one way with the type of centrifugal force, because and of course they had centrifugal force going out of control there too. But then they also had kind of just normal gravity, what feels to us feels like normal gravity. And they said Unreal Engine could make any set they wanted to. He said, whereas they used to have to build a model of the set and
Right.
then use a lipstick camera, a really small camera, to approximate what would it look like if we're filming inside this model we built, and then we take from that and figure out where do we want to put the real light. Said this Unreal Engine was just perfect, and they didn't have to make small models of anything.
Yeah.
And then they talked about the puppeteers and not having to, and yeah, and we covered Rocky's puppets pretty well, not having to look at a tennis ball, but also
I think
the
they also had the set on a gimbal so that they would indicate that he was in a ship that had artificial gravity.
exactly, and then artificial gravity gone out of whack too. One thing that was fascinating is they shot it digitally. They were thinking about shooting on film, but they really liked what you were alluding to, Ryan Gosling ad-libbing. They're just interactions and so they wanted some long takes. And on 35 millimeter IMAX, when you're shooting, I guess even 65, you got the longest roll of film is 10 minutes, and then you got to change film. And they were thinking, we want this could go on longer than 10 minutes. These long takes could go on
Yeah.
longer. So they knew they wanted to shoot digital, but they also did shoot on some film for some of these strange streaking effects, like when in Ryan Gosling's Memories of Earth, and also I think when we see, um, I'm trying to think when we see these strange streaking effects, we're looking at Earth and the stars, and maybe through Ryan Gosling's point of view as we look at the Earth and the stars. They actually filmed a monitor and then it shot it actually on film with a camera with a malformed shutter. Apparently, Steven Spielberg had done some of the same thing to get some of the same streaking effects
Hmm.
in the World War II film he made in 1998, Saving Private Ryan. Some of the
Right.
same streaking effects. I think, for a character's point of view, what it would be like to be on Omaha Beach and just the streaking of the bullets and the blood.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
kind of wanted that same look. So they used the same malformed shutter camera that had them, and were able to catch. They shot with that. Then I think digitally they actually shot some of the same stuff off a monitor, real high speed monitor. It matched up beautifully. You never know you're looking at a monitor, and it just worked great for some of those weird streaking effects. And get this, the ISO for some of this film was, some of it was 50, which is not a high ISO. Like
Yeah.
the cameras you use DSLRs, you're probably dialing up an ISO of 2000 a lot,
Probably. Yeah.
for your, and one of them had an ISO of 1, which
Wow.
you need a lot of light.
Well, that's true. I remember back in high school when we had a physics professor that would get us up on the roof of the building and photograph through a telescope, and you do the time the used the bulb setting on the old film cameras where you just open the shutter for
Oh, right.
5 minutes or something, and you had a rotating starfield effect.
Exactly. Oh, man! You had a professor like Ryan Gosling in high school.
Almost. I would say so. He
What
wore a
an
bow tie.
awesome teacher. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you could tell he's hands on. He's all about hands on. Sometimes we're both teachers, and so sometimes you'll see a film in a classroom. I know this has happened to you, where you're thinking that's the kids are way too engaged. The guy is teaching at this level, and the kids are
Yeah.
engaged. And that's a screenwriter going, oh, these kids just love this guy, and they're so engaged. No, you got to be engaged to get their engagement, and Ryan Gosling does that perfectly. He
Yeah.
really is, yeah, brings that kind of energy.
Yeah, he does play the role well, and I have to say that I don't know, I can't think of any other film where the main character is in every scene. Now, and you were talking about perspective; it's all done from his perspective, and so he has
Right.
to be in every scene. And the only thing that he is not there, that he's in the last scene, he's in a monitor still, so his face is on screen through the entire run of this film,
Through
and
the entire
that's
run of the, yeah.
yeah,
You know, one thing it kind of made me think, I was thinking about how they're shooting through a monitor, and I'm paraphrasing with this American cinematographer article, but they're actually shooting through a monitor with using a speed of when they were using the film, those ISOs we were talking about.
mhm.
But another place where you actually want to see the monitor is the room that replicates Earth, the room on the ship
Oh yeah,
that was designed for them to find some comfort. And you know, some of the shots, it looks perfect. I mean, you just go, this is like I'm outside in a field, but if you look close, you can see that you're looking at a screen, and they did
yes,
that perfectly.
they
It
really
just,
did.
yeah, I don't know how that's, yeah, I don't know if that was mainly practical or, yeah, that's
Well, I imagine they actually use screens for that, but that's another place where I think there's maybe a little hole in the plot where once again Rocky can't see any of that, and yet he invites Rocky to come in and watch that with him.
that's right. And Rocky can't see any of that.
Right.
that is, yeah, that, yeah, and yet Rocky gains some
Sometimes
comfort.
this gets a little too caught in the weeds in order to tell a good story, and so they
Yeah,
have to kind of ignore some of this, or else there wouldn't have really been any way that they could have had any common communication.
no. And when you think about Rocky's, well, they did such a good job with Rocky's sight, his point of view. No, I don't think they showed Rocky's point of view in that room. He was just kind of impressed with Earth, or you know, like, or at least he's playing off Ryan Gosling's feelings. That,
Perhaps so. Yeah.
yeah,
Perhaps so.
that it was. Oh, what did you think? And I know there's plenty. What do you think about the music in it?
Um, the music was good. They used, of course, some popular music in there as well,
Oh, that's true.
and the whole idea of how Rocky's language worked was musical notes.
Yes.
They didn't really do it directly that way, but kind of suggested it through some of the music that played when he was in a scene.
Right, right.
They did a
That's
tango while he was coming down the umbilical and stuff like that.
that makes sense. That, yeah, that's where they that's yeah, that complete. You know, it's I don't I didn't boy, research on the composer would be really cool too, just to
Yeah.
find out what inspired him. The films that got them, you were thinking of, you know, you think of classically like 2001, Solaris, some, you know, some of the films that inspired the cinematographer. The cinematographers love to kind of, and I'm checking out the, oh, I was looking up the article on the cinematography. The cinematographer's name is Greg Fraser is a cinematographer, and then of course the two directors, Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. But a lot of times that team gets together and they'll think, what's our visual palette for this movie? What other films are we going to reference in thinking of the lighting, the cinematography for the movie? And sometimes that same team they'll find a really good photographer or an artist that inspires them. But
Yeah.
in this case, you're thinking, could it be 2001? But it was not. And they kind of, one film that actually they took from was Alien, the first Alien, which it's kind
Yeah.
of hard, but you can kind of see that with the ship. It's not a horror movie. This film is obviously not a horror movie, but they kind of took from that. And I'm not sure if they used Interstellar. I was trying to think of some of their other inspirations for the film, but they did a great job at just coming up with really good lighting and effects. And I love the way Rocky's made, and Rocky and Adrian too. Just
Yeah.
perfect names. That
Yeah,
works.
obviously came from the Rocky movie, because Adrian was Rocky's wife. But yeah, I thought that was it was very clever how it was done, and the fact that we haven't heard of a lot of these people, I think, is due to the fact that it was done almost completely. Well, it was done completely in the UK. They did some
Yes.
locations. They did some locations in the UK, and most of the interior shots were done at Shepperton Studios, which is where they did all the Star Wars stuff. And they had the biggest studios in England, and one of the biggest in the world. And that was a way that they could build all the sets that they needed for it.
And that is not the first time we have said that you have said this.
That is true. That's true.
Seems like half of our films at least have been filmed in England or at Shepperton. And you know what hit me? I had to look it up. The cinematographer, they were inspired by heist movies. Some of the movies we've covered, Ocean's 11 with
Yeah.
the flashbacks, and how to after you see what they did in the heist, then we go back and we see, oh, how did they pull it off? So Ocean's 11, Midnight Run, Ghostbusters, Spotlight, those were all films that kind of inspired the telling of the tale, which
Yeah.
it, yeah, kind of not the ones you'd be thinking about. If you'd asked me, I would have said Star Trek. Um, uh, 2001 would have got
Yeah.
me, but
Yeah. But they
it's
kind
just
of they kind of countered against those kind of movies, because once again, like we
right,
say, we have the non-heroic main character, or not an anti-hero, but certainly a reluctant one.
right,
You have a whole different way of encountering new life, new civilizations. You have the a lot more hit and miss stuff with the ship. A lot more chances taken based on pure theory, and the means by which they did it, the way they filmed it, the way they used practical sets and props was something, though, I think that also kind of went against the sci-fi tropes, where you do a few things in regular kind of settings, and then you put CG for everything else.
right. That's exactly right. And I love what you said too about that goes against you have the way another, you mentioned another thing that goes against the grain is you're in so many of the, like the classic 2001. Ooh, it's life. It's a monolith. We're going to look at this monolith for 10 minutes, and see that the ooh, and the awe of new life. In this case, with the reluctant astronaut, it's blip one detected. And he's like, oh no, I don't want blip one. He didn't want anything. And actually, it's funny. A lot of scientists are truly afraid of encountering, as much as science fiction lovers are so excited. How can we reveal ourselves to be here? And we're here, come visit us. A lot of scientists, like Kip Thorne, I think, are like, no, the last thing you want to do is reveal that where you are. And so Ryan Gosling, being a reluctant astronaut, has that. He does not want to encounter new life. It's presented as scary. Blip two detected, blip three detected. He's just trying to protect himself. And and you're right. That goes against the grain of so many movie characters and the way new life is presented in films. And
A
it
lot more
comes
humor
down.
too.
Oh
There's nobody
yes,
that's ever made first contact with an alien and tried to teach him a fist bump.
yeah.
Fist my bump. No, it's fist bump. Is same. It's not the same.
Nope, it's not. That's a yeah. The uncomfortableness, yeah, that's uncomfortableness of that comes across. Just my bum, which
We
makes sense.
come back. We come back to Ava. Do you stand by what you wrote? Grace says, I was fired for standing by what I wrote. And she said, you were fired for calling the leading scholar in your field a staggering waste of carbon at the UNESCO conference in Denmark.
Yeah,
It was,
that's another,
even
yes,
straight
having that
faced.
kind of scientist who, yeah, the Goldilocks zone is overrated. We don't need water. All those things were beautifully. Yes, this was not Contact. We've covered Contact, and this is very different than Contact.
Yes, yes. And I think that's what makes this film a classic, and I think that's what we need to round this out with, is that what makes this film a classic is that it kind of throws back at you things that you would expect,
Yes.
and creates something that, while it is of a genre, it's totally new. It's not it's as different as Interstellar was. It's as different as The Martian was,
Right.
and different from those two.
Right. A reworking of the genre in a very pleasurable way, a lot of fun, and not just reworking just to be reworking. They start from the premise of a reluctant astronaut with this sense of humor, and just it follows through. And even to the, like you were mentioning, the way it's presented, the way the visuals are presented, you get some ooh ah effects, but they're all through, instead of it's like in Interstellar, we see when they first go out into space. I'm trying to remember the scene, but when Matthew McConaughey is first seeing space, there's got to be an ooh ah effect. In this case, it's Ryan Gosling coming to consciousness. Where am I? It'd be one thing to be waking up in your own house and you don't know where you are. He wakes up and he goes. Finally, he sees the ooh ah star field, and it scares the crap out of him. As
Yes,
it's not presented in an ooh ah, and that goes. The only thing that the planet around the Tau Ceti planet was so cool,
yeah.
and they did present that in kind of an amazing way. But by then, he was ready to get to that point as a
Right.
character.
He'd already developed a relationship with Rocky, and yeah, that allowed more and most of his memory back, and so he was able to actually process all of that. Where at the very
Process it.
beginning of the picture, and everything that we find out of how he got there, of course, was all done in flashback. So from all of this time, we're finding him on this ship, and everything we see in the flashback shows that he shouldn't have been there.
Right.
And that's what sets the tone for this. Wait a minute, what's going to happen to this poor guy? He's been kidnapped, basically, drugged, and then wakes up 12 years away from Earth.
Yeah, and it'd be one thing to wake up in your room with maybe you got amnesia, but at least you've got comforting things. Here he's got
Maybe.
two dead people to account for too,
Yeah.
and they're decomposing, and it's just whoa. And then he
Yeah.
stops to give him a little funeral. It's just brilliant, the instant classic, so many ways because of the reworking of the genre. It's just absolutely incredible film. It's one of those too. It's like the instant classics. I think you see them the first time and you go, "That was a good film," but this one, I think it bears up for. It's the classics always bear up for rewatchings, and I think this one will hold up as many
You're going to have
times.
to watch this several times before you
Yeah,
catch on all of the subtleties in it, and just the awe of how they're able to pull it all together. It's really a fine film,
oh,
and
and when they
I
run it, when they
recommend it
start
highly.
run, when they absolutely when they start running it on TCM or Turner at TNT, it'll be one of those films that even though you've seen it 100 times, you're going to sit down and go, "Oh, but this scene is coming up." I'm gonna. It's like Jaws or the Lord of the Rings films. You know that a particular scene's coming up. You've seen the film, but it's a Sunday afternoon. It's on cable. They're running the film again. You'll still sit down and watch it. It's that.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Or 20 years from now, you'll either watch it on Disney or HBO. I don't think there'll be anything else. But
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah, I sounded so dated with it.
cable.
TNT stuff.
I remember we had cable.
Yeah. Whoa.
Okay, we need to tie this into Gilligan's Island. This is what happens if only one survived, and so I see a little bit of Robinson Crusoe in here.
Uh,
He's not really
oh,
shipwrecked, but he's by
100%.
himself, and he
Yeah,
learns how to communicate with someone that helps him get along. And
that makes
in this
sense.
case, they have a mission to do, but there's certain notes there, I would say,
Yeah.
that match.
that completely makes sense. That yeah, yeah, and meet somebody, communicates with yeah, and it's so important to communicate. They so valuable. They establish that communication. Yeah, Robinson Crusoe on Mars is a really interesting film. That's strange film in many ways, but it actually works and works. Yeah, it's funny. It's got three characters. Adam West dies first. Uh,
Yeah.
early on in that
I'm
film.
still worried. I'm still bothered by that, but that's
Yeah,
that's a whole different story. Okay, I would give this in our Gilligan scale 4 professors.
me too. You got four professors out of four. I'm just gonna
Yes,
say it's
yes.
yeah, yeah. It's and you're right. It's got to be a professor. It's not a Gilligan.
It's not a
Sorry,
Gilligan. There's no
Gilligan.
Gilligans
Yeah,
in this. Nobody trips over anything and breaks everything. So
right.
they
It's
do
not a
have they do
Marianne.
have
It's got to be a professor. Yeah, it's
they do have a point to where Rocky almost dies, but we're that wasn't
that was I know we got to wrap things up. But still,
yeah.
that was so interesting. Quick question as we go. Do you think that Ryan Gosling never gave up on? Do you think he just thought, I don't understand the biology of this species. It may come back. That's. You think he had hope?
I think
Uh,
he did. I mean,
yeah.
the way that he at least tried to do something to help it. This may
Yeah.
not do any good, but we're going to try anyway. That there's something to be said for that.
Right.
So okay, let's see. Now let's get a little housekeeping done here. First of all, I'm aware that I forgot to turn my blue light on behind me, and secondly.
I just got that. Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed it a few minutes ago and thought, there's something odd about this picture. For those of you who are watching us on YouTube, if you're listening to the podcast, it's a whole lot more meaningful, I think. Okay, so I'm away next week, and we will be back on the 20th.
Right.
So,
Yes.
we're having summer vacations basically. So
Right.
it's caused a few dropouts here. But I mean, last year we still did 46 episodes, so I think that
Whoa.
we're doing pretty well as
That
far
is.
as number of episodes out. So
I'm
we
going to
look
buy my
forward.
Panama hat.
Yeah, I'll bring you one.
Made out of newspaper. That's
Yeah, yeah. Remember newspaper. So. Okay. Let's see. So we're back on the 20th, and we'll just let you be surprised by what we review next time. But we'll go back into the 20th century of movies. But this one was something that I thought that we needed to talk about because it is
100%.
such a great film. They don't come around very often.
No, they do not. Wow.
All right. Thank you, Professor. Always a pleasure to chat with you, and it's
my
always
pleasure.
it's a pleasure also to talk with all of you. We hope that you enjoyed what we've done here, and that you'll join us back in 2 weeks and see whatever we end up talking about. Until then, don't go far.